and welcome back. The country table is still mobile this week. When we were together last, I told you that we'd be looking at another meal that was based on a crock pot entree, and we're going to do that, but we're also going to work together on the complete meal. And we're splurging this meal, and we'll have dessert. We're going to be making an old-fashioned coconut meringue pie. It takes several steps. The crust has to be baked in advance and cooled before the pie is put together. So for that reason, I thought we'd go ahead and get this going, get our pie crust in the pan and get it started baking. This is, of course, my favorite pie crust that we've talked about before, and we'll show you again how to just press it into the pan all the way around. Roll the edge, which I should have taken time to roll this out a little bit larger to give me more of a standing edge of the crust here. But we're going to turn this under all the way around. And then we'll be fluting it using really just the side of your finger and the handle of a wooden spoon. Get this all rolled under. I think we mentioned before it's going to do better if you roll this under, because otherwise you would have kind of a seam showing on the outside of your fluted edge. And I again should have rolled this out a little bit to make the crust larger, because it's pulling my crust away from the corner, the tucked in portion in the pan. But we'll just work around that and stretch it a little bit as we go. Almost made it around. Get it kind of stretched back to press into the pan really well. Okay. Easy technique to dress the pie crust, and you can do this any way that you like. You can, of course, take the tines of a fork and press all the way around. That's a perfectly acceptable finish on the crust. I just like to do it this way. Index finger pressed sort of on the diagonal, and the handle of a spoon pressed diagonally, and you just press that crust together between the spoon and between your finger. And it makes a really nice fluted edge all the way around. Kind of had a crazy little segment there that didn't lay exactly right. Just come all the way around with the fluting. Really easy to do. You can play with this if your outcome isn't exactly what you want the first time you try this. Just go back around again. That's one of the beauties of pie crust. You can work with it endlessly practically. All right, we're ready to go in the oven. It's a 450-degree oven. It should take 10 to 12 minutes for the crust to get nice and brown, and we'll see you back in just a few minutes. I thought while our pie crust baked, we'd go ahead and get our roast started in the crock pot. I have a rump roast today. The store didn't have the shoulder roast that I typically prefer. Shoulder roast, chuck roast, and hopefully this rump roast would be fine, whatever your favorite cut is for the roast. Couldn't be a simpler recipe on this one. You just take this roast and put it in the crock pot. It's a good bit of fat on the bottom. One way you can cook this roast in a healthier manner, or serve it in a healthier manner, is to even cook it the night before and then chill it in the refrigerator all day. All that fat from the beef will rise to the top of your gravy, and you can skim that off, and it makes for a much less fat dish that's a lot healthier. All you need to do now is take a packet of Lipton onion soup mix, sprinkle it over the roast. What's left can go down to either side, because it's all going to go to the bottom anyway. And then take a cup of water and pour that over the roast, which will wash most of the onion soup mix to the bottom of the crock pot. Put the lid on, plug it in, and I generally start the roast on high for 2 or 3 hours and then might cut it to low. It just depends on how much time I have. You can cook it all the way on high, or you can cook it all the way on low depending on your time frame. We'll go ahead and start it at high, at least for a couple of hours, and then I may turn it down. This is a fairly large roast, so it's probably going to take a little bit longer than the average, but we'll get it started now on high. Couldn't be any simpler, could it? And it's going to make a delicious, juicy, and tender roast with its own gravy. You can thicken that gravy with some water mixed with flour if you like at the end of the cooking time. You can also extend the gravy by using a can of golden mushroom soup. That is one option, but it's a delicious gravy just by itself. We'll see how this goes. Our timer has beeped and I think our crust is ready. Let's get it out of the oven and see how it looks. Okay, it's browned and some of it unfortunately pulled away from the pie pan. And I have a small confession to make. I, in my haste, forgot to prick this crust with a fork before I put it in the oven. That helps it from, that keeps it from ballooning upward. The crust will expand and sort of puff up if you don't prick the crust. And you can see some remnants of that having happened. I apologize, and because I used the tines of the fork sort of at an angle, it's made some fairly unattractive punctures in the crust, but it will still serve its purpose. All right, we need to wait for this crust to cool. As I told you earlier, it has to cool before we can put the custard into it, and of course we haven't made that yet. In the meantime, we're going to put together a couple of side dishes. One is a broccoli casserole and the other is brown rice. Those will accompany our roast when it gets ready later on. We have a little more time to spend on today's meal because we liked this campground so much. We had decided to stay over another night, so it gave me a little additional time to work on the meal and do some side dishes that I might not have ordinarily taken the time to do. You know, we have a fairly compact kitchen here in the RV, but it still lets us do pretty much anything we'd like to do, and it helps that I can cover parts or both sides of the sink and cover the stove to give additional workspace as well. So it typically is not too difficult to pull off a meal, even though it's a lot more limited space than you might have at home. I'll see you in just a few minutes. Hello again. I've gotten together our ingredients for broccoli casserole, and we're going to start by putting the broccoli into the microwave to get it cooked. It'll only take about 5 minutes to do that, and I don't typically like to use these steamer bags because I worry about the toxins from the plastic. Most of the time I will put the broccoli into a Pyrex dish with a little bit of water and cover it with saran and cook it that way. Today I'm going to show you the microwave version. It just takes 5 minutes in the microwave, so we'll get that started and then we'll start putting together our other ingredients. We're going to chop an onion first in our helpful Ninja chopper. These things are great. If you don't have one, it saves a lot of trouble when you're chopping food. It is so fast and works really, really well. You might try one. Make sure I can get it put together properly. Just a couple of pulses, and obviously my lid is not on properly. It won't, because of the safety features, it won't let you start it if it isn't seated correctly. Just a few pulses and our onion is chopped really well. This was a pretty good sized onion, so I may or may not use all of it. If you like onion, by all means throw it all in, but it's most of a medium-sized onion. Then we're going to take a can of mushroom soup and put that in. Then we'll crack 2 eggs, and you'll want to beat these a little bit before you mix everything together. A good bit of pepper, however much you like. Let's go ahead and beat those eggs just a bit so that they'll mix with the other ingredients easily. And then we're going to take a cup of mayonnaise and add that to our dish. And then we add in a cup of grated cheese. This happens to be a mild cheddar. You can certainly use a medium or even a sharp if you wanted to. And I grated this cheese. Typically I don't like the pre-grated cheeses. Sometimes they tend to be dry. But in a recipe like this, when you have plenty of moisture, it may or may not matter. But I did hand grate this. All right, we're just gonna mix all those ingredients together, and as soon as our broccoli comes out, it lacks about 3 minutes being ready, and we'll be ready to finish putting this together. In the meantime, I'm going to finish crushing the Ritz crackers. No, I'm sorry, not the Ritz crackers, but the Cheez-It crackers that will be the topping for our casserole. To save time, have crushed most of them already, but I'll just show you. You can take a rolling pin or even a glass and roll it over and just crush these coarsely. You don't want it to be a fine powder. You'll want some fairly decent sizes of the crackers remaining, and then you'll be sprinkling this later on over the top of your dish. Okay, all we have to do now is wait for our broccoli to come out of the microwave, and we'll see how this dish goes together.
Dairy Queen is a proud part of our local communities and is cheering our sports teams on to championship seasons. Drop by before and after the game to say hello to Mr. Ash and his entire crew and enjoy the full Dairy Queen menu, including our famous grilled burgers, artisan-style sandwiches, and chicken strips. Cool off with our renowned smoothies, slushies, malts, and iced coffees. Try our fabulous desserts and take an ice cream cake home for that special occasion, or just to treat the family. Dine in or take out at Dairy Queen locations in Homerville, Blackshear, Folkestone, and Fernandina Beach. See you at the DQ. Huddle up! That's right, huddle up at the Huddle House in Homerville and Lakeland before or after the game. And if you can't make it to the game, watch all the live action here at the Huddle House. Remember, Huddle Houses of Homerville and Lakeland have a full menu with something for everyone, with prices that can't be beat. Whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, 24 hours per day, Huddle House is a game-winning recipe for the entire family. Go Clinch County Panthers, go Lanier County Bulldogs, and don't forget, huddle up at the Huddle House.
Save money, drive better when you buy a car or truck from the car company in Homerville. We have a variety of vehicles to choose from, and you will not find a better deal anywhere. If you need financing, the car company finances. If we don't have the vehicle you're looking for, we will find it for you. Call Kenny or Chip to discuss your vehicle needs today. Remember, when you buy a car from the car company in Homerville, you will save money and drive better. Go Panthers!
Carter's Fried Chicken in Homerville has become the gold standard for fried chicken barbecue and catering. Carter's also offers a full menu of other tasty items and is open on Sunday. Thanks, Chad Brown, for making dining at Carter's a family tradition in Homerville. Go Panthers!
Our microwave has beeped. Our broccoli seems to be ready. It's really hot, of course, so be careful as you handle it. I'm going to just cut the bag open, and steam is likely to come out, so again, be careful of how you handle it. I don't think there'll be much moisture in this, extra moisture, but I'm going to drain it in a colander in the sink first, just to be sure. Now this was a bag of broccoli cuts. You can also use chopped broccoli for this recipe. You may find that some of these cuts are larger than what you want if you decide to use the cuts, so feel free to cut those to whatever size you're comfortable with. But again, chopped broccoli or the cuts would work fine. And some moisture did drain out of this, so I'm glad we put it in the colander for a few seconds. You don't want it to make the casserole soupy. Okay, I think the moisture has stopped coming out. You just add that to your other ingredients here in our bowl and mix that together well. These probably did need to be cut a little bit smaller, but for folks who are big broccoli fans, this larger size should be just fine. I have taken just a medium-sized casserole dish and I did grease it a little bit. It just keeps your cleanup simpler. The ingredients won't tend to stick to the walls of the casserole dish quite so badly if it's greased a little bit. Let's see if I can pour this left-handed, sort of, or get it out left-handed. Just add it to the casserole dish and spread it around evenly. This combination of the mayonnaise, egg, and cheese and the soup, I just love the flavor of this. It's a recipe I've used for decades, I don't know, for a very long time. And it works really well for family meals, for holiday meals. It's a great dish to take to a church supper. It travels well and holds well. Even if it's cooled off considerably, it's still appetizing even at room temperature. So it's a great versatile dish. Our topping that we put together earlier, now we're going to add that to the top of the casserole. Just sprinkle that evenly all the way to the edges. You don't need a very thick covering, just whatever you're comfortable with. And I probably have extra crumbs here, but I wanted to be sure that we had enough. Okay, I think that's enough. And this is ready to go into the oven. Because our roast is not ready yet, I'm just going to cover this with saran and put it in the fridge. That's another beauty of this casserole dish. You can make it the night before. It even helps the flavors blend together better for the day that it's served. But you can cover it with saran and keep it in the fridge at least overnight, even longer, and then take it out to bake at the last minute. Ordinarily, if I'm going to hold it before I bake it, I would not put the topping on because you don't want it to get kind of soggy. So ideally, wait and add your topping just before you put the dish into the oven. I just wanted to see I wanted you to see how the finished product would look, so I went ahead and added our topping. I'm going to grab some saran and cover this up, and then in just a couple of minutes we'll take a look at putting together our brown rice dish. See you in a minute. Now we're going to put together brown rice. You might more realistically call this brown rice casserole because it doesn't use brown rice. It uses white rice, which becomes brown, but it is not truly brown rice in that sense. But it's a great dish, again, to carry with you somewhere. It's a great side dish to add to your family meals and especially holiday meals. But it too travels well and holds well, and it's easy. That's one of the best things about it. We're going to take a can of beef consommé, dump that into our dish, a can of French onion soup, and about a half a stick of butter. The original recipe did call for a full stick. I thought that was a little buttery, so I just normally use a half a stick. If you like more butter, by all means use it. Then we're going to add a cup of white rice, to our dish. and stir that. And you are all set. This is ready to go in the oven. Here again you have a few options. I'm making it at head because the roast is not ready. You can hold it for some period of time, just covered. Don't let any heat get to it because you don't want the rice to cook. Or you can make it just before you're ready to serve, about an hour ahead of time. It takes a good 45 minutes to bake in a regular oven. If you're in a hurry, you can also start it out in the microwave, maybe on 8 or 9 minutes at high. Then take it and put it in the conventional oven to finish it out. So that would cut your cook time considerably. It will probably need to be stirred a time or two during the baking just to make sure that the onions, which have risen to the top during the cooking, to make sure that they get blended back into the dish evenly. And that's really all you have to do. Again, we're going to hold our brown rice for a while until the roast is finished and until we have baked our broccoli casserole. But I hope you'll try this recipe. It's very simple and the results are always good, and best of all, they're foolproof. Let's put our coconut pie together. Is it just me, or is dessert everybody's favorite part of the meal? It typically is mine. We're going to need 3 eggs separated. You're going to use your yolks in the custard we'll make, and of course the egg whites will become our meringue later on, which we'll do. All you have to do is break the egg open, and this may not be the perfect way to do it, but that's the way I separate yolks from whites. Dump the yolk into the dish. Just pour back and forth and the white will fall away from the yolk. That's number 2, and this is our 3rd one. That's a really large yolk. This one's a little bit harder to separate. It doesn't matter if you get some some white into your yolks. That will not make a difference in the custard, but you really want to be careful not to get any yolk into your white, or else your meringue won't make nice peaks the way you want it to before baking. So we're just going to set our egg whites over here out of the way, and we will give those yolks a little bit of a stir so that the yolk has burst. And then we are going to take 3/4 of a cup of sugar, put it in our saucepan. It's being a little bit stubborn about coming out. There. And we'll take 1/4 teaspoon of salt. The salt's really an important ingredient, especially in a dish that's very, very sweet. I'm not really sure the magic that it creates, but it does make a difference. It cuts some of that sweetness and seems to enhance the flavor as well. Then we're going to take 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. Of course, that's what will thicken your custard. And I better grab a knife here to make sure this is a level measurement instead of just an estimate. 1, 2, and 3. All you need to do at this point is stir those ingredients together. Make sure you don't see the lumps of cornstarch on top of the sugar. There we go. When you get those blended, and I really made a nice mess here on the counter. Maybe we can get some of that out of the way. When you get those ingredients blended together, you're going to slowly add some milk to that mixture, and we're going to get our stove going first. Again, pardon the exhaust fan, but we have to have it when we cook with gas. And there we go. Go ahead and turn on the heat and slowly add the milk to the ingredients that you already have in the saucepan. That will blend together really well. If there are lumps, try to get those out, but you shouldn't have any problem incorporating that into the dry ingredients. I've left this on high heat. It's really important, if you're going to do that, to keep stirring. Don't stop, because the milk will scorch at a high heat like this. But just keep it stirring. After several minutes, it's going to look a little bubbly and you'll see steam rising from the milk. That's a good sign. You want to let that happen, and then start your timer for 2 minutes and cook the milk and sugar, cornstarch and salt mixture for 2 full minutes. We're just going to wait for that to happen. Keep stirring. I really got cornstarch everywhere. I apologize for that. Still on this high heat, so I can't stress strongly enough how important it is to continue to stir. You don't want to stop even for a few seconds, because it's really easy for it to scorch if you do. As you stir, you're going to feel the graininess disappear. You'll know that the sugar is dissolving as it should within the milk. So everything's right on schedule right now. And I am starting to see a few bubbles around the edge of the saucepan. And that just lets me know that it is beginning to heat the way we want it to. I don't see steam rising yet from the spoon, so I'm not going to start the timer just yet. I want to make sure it is really, really hot. The side of our saucepan is not terribly hot, so I know the milk can't be quite ready to start timing for our 2 minutes of cooking. After we cook this for 2 minutes, we're then going to take it off the heat and add a little bit of this hot mixture to those yolks we have in our bowl over on the other side. That is going to help prevent lumps. Instead of just dumping it all together at the same time, you might get some lumps that are not desirable at all. But I'll show you what I mean by that. And then, of course, after we blend those together and add the rest of the milk to the yolks, we will put it back on the heat and cook for a few more minutes. Still stirring all the way. Let's see if we have any steam rising from our milk. I think maybe I do see a little bit. So we're going to set the timer for 2 minutes and continue to heat and stir.
One Trip is open 24/7 every day of the year to serve you with gas, fuel, a fully stocked convenience store, and yes, that delicious crispy, crunchy chicken, as well as breakfast and lunch buffets. With 2 locations in Homerville and 1 in Douglas, One Trip is all you need to make. Thanks to Mike and Chip for supporting the Panthers in their quest for another state championship, and be sure to visit One Trip.
Subway, the Corner Pantry, and the Argyle Food Market are locally owned by Mr. Nick Patel, who thanks the Clinch County Homerville communities for all their support. Subway, located on West Dame Avenue in Homerville, is the go-to place for nutritious, healthy food, and Subway also serves a delicious breakfast each morning. We have catering platters to meet all your tailgating needs. Don't forget to drop by the Corner Pantry in Homerville and the Argyle Food Market in Argyle and pick up all the items you need at the best discount prices in Clinch County. Nick says, "Go Panthers!"
Lutz, Brown, Piegler, and Manley Insurance Agency is locally owned, has been a part of the Homerville, Clinch County community for many years. Jeff Brown and Eric Lutz make it a priority to know their clients on a personal basis and take pride in customizing insurance coverage for the particular needs of each customer. They offer all lines of insurance, including auto, home, business, life insurance, annuities, and bonds. Lutz, Brown, Piegler, and Manley Insurance Agency, East Dame Avenue, Homerville. Go Panthers!
Since 1972, Popeyes has been serving up mouth-watering, delicious, hot and mild fried chicken and chicken tenders from its Louisiana kitchen. You know about our great chicken, but have you tried our tasty seafood? All of our menu items come with a Southern style all their own. On your way to or after the game, stop by Popeyes and remember we can handle all your special event catering needs. Conveniently located on Memorial Drive in Waycross, Popeyes puts a piece of Louisiana in every single meal. Lee Engineering and Construction Company in DuPont, Georgia has been a part of the community since 1935 and is proud to support Clinch County athletics. The prayer of the entire Lee Engineering family is that our Lord and Savior will richly bless our schools, community, and nation.
Okay, our timer has gone off. We've done our 2 minutes at this medium-high heat. I'm going to get the heat shut off there. And again, we're going to take some of this hot mixture, which has already luckily begun to thicken. We'll stir it into the egg mixture. Of course, the idea here is that these eggs will cook and the mixture will thicken even more. Remember, when you are cooking a custard, and I hope when I said custard, none of you panicked. If you've never cooked a boiled custard, it can be a little intimidating, but it really is so easy to do if you follow the steps. But the idea is that these eggs are going to cook and thicken the mixture even more, but because it is so hot, you might be a little concerned that it hasn't cooked enough, that it isn't thick enough. But remember, because it is so hot, it will still have a much more liquid quality, and once it sits up, it's going to thicken more to the consistency of a pudding and be exactly what you need for this pie filling. All right, we go back onto the heat, and I'm going to turn it to about a medium here. Stir this back into the mixture that's in the saucepan. There we go. And you're going to cook and stir this for another 3 minutes. And it's going to be boiling around the edges. As long as you keep stirring, it's not going to scorch. Just be sure that you don't stop stirring and try to cover the entire area of the saucepan as you move around. Let's set our timer, and I'm going to give it about 2:45 because I talked instead of setting the timer. Our custard is done, I believe. Our timer has gone off. It's good and thick, and we have a couple of steps left to finish it before we're ready to assemble the pie. First, we're going to add in 3 tablespoons of butter. I like real butter. I don't use margarine. I think the flavor is so much better from butter. And we're also going to add a teaspoon and a half of vanilla, but I don't want to do that just yet because the custard is so hot. I'm afraid it might cook out some of the flavor. So we're just going to let it sit for a few minutes to cool just a bit, not all the way down, and then we'll add that vanilla in. I'm going to take a chance on it and go ahead and add it in. There we go. And we'll stir that in. Just make sure your butter is melted. And again, this is going to look too liquidy for you. You'll be afraid that it's not going to set up later on, but when it cools down, the consistency will change pretty significantly and it will be much more like a pudding. All right, our custard is done. We are ready to assemble this pie as soon as we make our meringue. And I'll show you in just a second how to do that. Before we make the meringue, I have one critical ingredient to still add to the custard, and of course that is sweetened coconut. It's a cup. You can use more or less depending on your preference, and it's fine to go ahead and add it in while the custard is still hot. Of the two ingredients, the vanilla and the coconut, I would wait longer on the vanilla, but go ahead, it's fine to go ahead and add your coconut in when you put the butter in. I should have done that sooner actually. All right, here we have the 3 egg yolks that we got earlier when we separated our eggs for the pie. I'm just going to put that in our bowl and start to whip these. I'll whip them until they begin to thicken and start to form peaks. And I'll go ahead and add our sugar in at that point. And this is just less than a half cup of sugar. Some recipes will tell you less sugar than that. I prefer a little bit sweeter meringue, so I bump it up a little bit. Some recipes will call for cream of tartar to make the meringue more stable. It supposedly helps with the peaks. I personally think it's more a question of the egg whites, the temperature of the egg whites, the speed of the beating, and the humidity in the atmosphere. But if you prefer cream of tartar, by all means use it. This is going to be pretty noisy and it'll take a few minutes, but here we go. I've stopped the mixer because it is so noisy, but as you can see, we're starting to thicken up. The egg whites are getting a lot of air in them and they're beginning to thicken and get to the point where they would hold a peak. I'm going to start the mixer again and slowly add the sugar. You not only want to wait for the peaks to form, but you want to be sure that the sugar has had time to dissolve. So here we go again, and we'll get the sugar added in. Our meringue is ready. It's holding peaks beautifully. I think it's going to be just what we need. First, we're going to put the custard into the pie shell, our pitiful crust. Aren't you glad the custard is going to cover this up? Just pour your custard into the pie shell. Of course, this was made sometime earlier. The crust is nice and cool. You don't want to put it in unless it is cooled completely. If you make your custard earlier in the day than I did, you're going to want to be sure that you don't leave it exposed to air while it cools. Otherwise it forms a skim on the top. So just put the lid to your saucepan. Some people recommend putting saran directly onto the custard and leaving it there while it cools. If you do it as quickly as we have done it here from one step to the other, it probably will not make any difference. All right, we're just going to take, for lack of a better word, globs of meringue and spread them around on top of the custard. Really easy to do. If you distribute those blobs of meringue, it's easier to spread it thoroughly. Now it's really important that you seal the meringue, and that means taking it all the way to the crust. Just press down slightly and the meringue will spread towards your crust and form a seal. If you don't do that, as the pie bakes to brown that meringue, the meringue is going to shrink and pull away from the crust. and it would expose this pitiful crust that I just about destroyed. So the more you can cover that up and conceal it, the better, especially in this instance. First, we're just spreading it and getting it sealed to the crust, and then we're going to go back around to form the peaks the way we want those to look. But you really need to make it a priority to seal the meringue to the crust so that you don't have a bad outcome with shrinkage of that meringue and pulling away from the crust. Okay, that's the last hole I think to cover up, and we're sealed all the way to the edge. Maybe one place or two I missed. There we go. Now just lift your spoon or your spatula, whatever you're using, pull away the meringue, pull it up, and if you sort of flip your wrist a little bit this way and that way, it makes the peaks fall in a different direction. One of the supposed advantages to using cream of tartar when you make a meringue is that it theoretically at least makes less likely the formation of those sugar drops on top of the meringue. You've all seen those, I'm sure. I prefer the sugar drops, so that's another reason that I don't bother with cream of tartar. But whatever you prefer, whatever your choice is. Those are not some of my most artistic peaks, but you get the idea. I think we'll stop with that. And now we are ready to go into a 350-degree oven, which we have preheated. As soon as we sprinkle some more coconut onto the top of the meringue, this will brown slightly as the meringue cooks and it gets brown. It usually takes somewhere around 12 minutes or so. Watch it closely because you don't want the meringue to be too brown and you don't want the coconut to get too brown, and that will happen pretty quickly. All ovens tend to be a little different, so you'll really want to keep track of the browning process as it goes on. We'll pop our pie into the oven and set the timer. I'm going to set it for 12, but I'll really keep a close eye on it as it bakes to make sure it doesn't get overdone. We'll see you in a few minutes. Our timer has gone off and our meringue looks like it's ready. Let's get it out of the oven. Our pie is all set. And there we have the finished product. I hope you'll try this recipe. It is probably the same one that some of your grandmoms have always baked. It is a very old recipe. It was in a Better Homes and Gardens cookbook that I've had for over 40 years. So it does have a few steps involved, and yet I think the finished product is well worth your time and effort. I hope you enjoy that. I think we will later on. I might even have dessert first. It looks as though our roast is going to be ready in about an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and bake the brown rice and the broccoli casserole. Oven is at 350. I'm going to hope that this works to put two dishes in at the same time. Since it's a convection oven, I think it'll be fine. I'm going to just set the timer for these at probably about 40 minutes for the casserole, and then I'll give the brown rice another 10 minutes or so to make sure that all the liquid is absorbed from it. So I'll set the timer for that, and that's ready to go. And I think while all these items get baked and the roast finishes up, we're going to go out and visit some of our neighbors here in the campground. You never fail to find some interesting folks who enjoy RVing. Some are more interesting than others, and typically they're very engaging. So we'll wander around and visit a few folks and be back shortly. We enjoyed visiting around with our neighbors and waiting for everything to get cooked, and lo and behold, everything is ready. I've already taken up the roast, and now we're going to get the brown rice and the broccoli casserole out. I had told you I thought it might increase the cook time a bit if we put both items in the oven at the same time, and it did. I probably had to add a good 15 minutes to the baking time before they were ready. I'm going to put the I'm going to put the brown rice in this serving bowl. This casserole dish was not the prettiest in the world. I think it'll look a little better in this white bowl. You can see the rice has fluffed up. Everything has turned brown, the color of the consomme and the French onion soup. And that dish is ready. Now let's get the broccoli casserole out. It doesn't look terribly different than it did when it went into the oven. It's puffed up just a bit. If you jiggle the dish, you can see that it does not look liquefied in the center the way it did before it was cooked. So a good jiggle will tell you if it's done. Sometimes it will actually brown the crackers around the edge. But we are all set, everything is ready, and we're about to dig in.
Save money? Drive better when you buy a car or truck from the car company in Homerville. We have a variety of vehicles to choose from, and you will not find a better deal anywhere. If you need financing, the car company finances. If we don't have the vehicle you're looking for, we will find it for you. Call Kenny or Chip to discuss your vehicle needs today. Remember, when you buy a car from the car company in Homerville, you will save money and drive better. Go Panthers!
Carter's Fried Chicken in Homerville has become the gold standard for fried chicken barbecue and catering. Carter's also offers a full menu of other tasty items and is open on Sunday. Thanks, Chad Brown, for making dining at Carter's a family tradition in Homerville. Go Panthers!
Dairy Queen is a proud part of our local communities and is cheering our sports teams on to championship seasons. Drop by before and after the game to say hello to Mr. Ash and his entire crew and enjoy the full Dairy Queen menu, including our famous grilled burgers, artisan-style sandwiches, and chicken strips. Cool off with our renowned smoothies, slushies, malts, and iced coffees. Try our fabulous desserts and take an ice cream cake home for that special occasion, or just to treat the family. Dine in or take out at Dairy Queen locations in Homerville, Blackshear, Folkestone, and Fernandina Beach. See you at the DQ. Huddle up! That's right, huddle up at the Huddle House in Homerville and Lakeland before or after the game. And if you can't make it to the game, watch all the live action here at the Huddle House. Remember, Huddle Houses of Homerville and Lakeland have a full menu with something for everyone, with prices that can't be beat. Whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, 24 hours per day, Huddle House is a game-winning recipe for the entire family. Go Clinch County Panthers, go Lanier County Bulldogs, and don't forget, huddle up at the Huddle House. Lee Engineering and Construction Company in DuPont, Georgia has been a part of the community since 1935 and is proud to support Clinch County athletics. The prayer of the entire Lee Engineering family is that our Lord and Savior will richly bless our schools, community, and nation. Lutz, Brown, Piegler, and Manley Insurance Agency is locally owned, has been a part of the Homerville, Clinch County community for many years. Jeff Brown and Eric Lutz make it a priority to know their clients on a personal basis and take pride in customizing insurance coverage for the particular needs of each customer. They offer all lines of insurance, including auto, home, business, life insurance, annuities, and bonds. Lutz, Brown, Piegler, and Manley Insurance Agency, East Dame Avenue, Homerville. Go Panthers!
One Trip is open 24/7 every day of the year to serve you with gas, fuel, a fully stocked convenience store, and yes, that delicious crispy crunchy chicken, as well as breakfast and lunch buffets. With 2 locations in Homerville and 1 in Douglas, One Trip is all you need to make. Thanks to Mike and Chip for supporting the Panthers in their quest for another state championship, and be sure to visit One Trip.
Since 1972, Popeyes has been serving up mouth-watering, delicious, hot, and mild fried chicken and chicken tenders from its Louisiana kitchen. You know about our great chicken, but have you tried our tasty seafood? All of our menu items come with a Southern style all their own. On your way to or after the game, stop by Popeyes and remember we can handle all your special event catering needs. Conveniently located on Memorial Drive in Waycross, Popeyes puts a piece of Louisiana in every single meal. Subway, the Corner Pantry, and the Argyle Food Market are locally owned by Mr. Nick Patel, who thanks the Clinch County Homerville communities for all their support. Subway, located on West Dame Avenue in Homerville, is the go-to place for nutritious, healthy food, and Subway also serves a delicious breakfast each morning. We have catering platters to meet all your tailgating needs. Don't forget to drop by the Corner Pantry in Homerville and the Argyle Food Market in Argyle and pick up all the items you need at the best discount prices in Clinch County. Nick says, go Panthers!